Is a 12th overall pick the NFL's best-kept secret for finding Hall of Fame power? From the sheer dominance of Warren Sapp and Herb Adderley to the modern-day game-changers like Micah Parsons and Marshawn Lynch, this slot has a history of producing pure beast mode talent. We're 12 days out from the 2026 draft, and today we're counting down the top 5 players who turned pick number 12 into a nightmare for the rest of the league. Welcome to the Pig Pen. It's Pigskin Dispatch's Countdown with Ed Cleese, our guest. We are just 12 days before the NFL draft in Pittsburgh, and we are getting ready by counting down the picks. And Ed Cleese joins me once again. Ed, welcome back to the Pig Pen.
Hey, Darin, we're down to the dirty dozen.
It sure is. These are the big boys coming up here now. We've got some great people to talk about here the next almost 2 weeks right for this draft. So a lot of fun to go on the show here. So what do you have to say about the overall view of pick number 12?
Well, I think we're getting there because, you know, when we talked yesterday about the 13th pick, I think I've said all along that I'm waiting for what's the number? Like at what point can I write a line and say, okay, this is where the draft history really improves? And I'm telling you, from pick 14 through 32, there's very little difference to me to discern. I did not find any patterns. So for the teams that are drafting, you know, I don't see a whole lot of difference right now between like that middle teens pick and like an early 30s pick, at least historically. There's not been a lot of difference with like hits or misses or Hall of Fame. It's just kind of all over the place. Maybe we see that change at 13 because yesterday we talked about 13. 13 was super strong, like definitely our best group so far. And then 12, I don't have 12 quite as strong as 13, but it's still a good mix of players that's sort of elevated from some of these other picks that we have talked about. So it's this is a pretty good list here. And when I was going through, I was like, okay, little bit of a cut above. Now maybe this top 5 isn't quite as strong as 13, but it's still pretty darn good.
And historically, so far, there's not a lot of Hall of Famers from this number pick 12. I was kind of surprised by that. I think we only have 3 that are on the list here.
And we got some maybes. I think we got some maybes.
Yeah, we might have more in the modern era than we have already have been in the Hall of Fame.
Right. And I think we've also got some like we talk a lot about in the past. We go like, oh, this guy's pretty good. We got a lot of guys in this list that were really good. Maybe not quite Canton, but better than average by far.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, why don't we get into who you're giving some honorable mentions to and get into your list?
Yeah, sure. So I like to start with like the recent, and I'd say recently, really this potentially very promising. You've got Bo Nix, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jameson Williams, and then a little farther back, but you know, Vita Vea. So these are really strong players. And then you kind of have these kind of in that same like last dozen years, 2 of the opposite, both Henry Ruggs and Deshaun Watson were taken 12th overall, who have had significant off-field stuff that has stunted their career. And then the one that I've got to mention for sure is we got to keep an eye on Micah Parsons. I decided that this pick was strong enough that I don't quite have him in the top 5, but I think there's a big yet with that because he is clearly trending towards probably the Hall of Fame, if we're being honest. He's got a long way to go in terms of volume, but in terms of his production so far in his career, he's kind of having a Hall of Fame career so far.
But almost seems like the health issues, you know, end of last season, there's some big question marks going into this season. You know, Green Bay maybe he's even getting some plan B as an edge rusher to take his place. I don't think they're too keen on if he's going to be playing a lot this year.
And we've seen that a lot when we've gone through the history of some of these players. They're like, wow, this guy was shot out of a cannon, and then like what happened? And a lot of times it's like, oh, he got hurt, you know, and he couldn't get. Now I think these days we see guys rehab and come back way faster and better than they used to, but you don't know. So Parsons for me, he's neither honorable. He's just on the island by himself when it comes to 12th picks right now, just in this we'll see spot. Because he's obviously a dominant player when he's playing, and then we'll just have to see where his career goes from here.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good, safe choice there. And you got some names that are very deserving to be on your top five. If I'm not
Yeah.
even sure who you're picking, but just looking at these names, there's a lot of good choices. Let's take a break for a moment to tell you about a new product so that you can take and put your football knowledge that we feed you each and every day to the test. It is the Pigskin Trivia Drive on pigskindispatch.com. You're the quarterback. You call the shots, choose your play, grind it out with a run, pick up steady gains on a short pass, or risk it all with a long pass for a massive chunk of yardage. It isn't just a quiz, it's a march for glory. It's the Pigskin Trivia Drive. Remember, when the huddle's over, when you pick your play, the faster you answer, the more yards you gain. Hesitation is the enemy of the end zone. Keep those chains moving. Cross that yellow line to reset your downs and earn a critical audible. Stuck on a tough defensive look? Use those audibles to strip away 2 wrong answers and find your open receiver. Watch the play clock. You've got just 25 seconds to make the read. Take too long, and it's a 5-yard penalty for delay a game. It's game action. In this stadium, your brain is the engine, but the clock is the opponent. The mission is simple. Score as many touchdowns as possible in 5 minutes. And when the clock hits 0, your score hits the global leaderboard. Are you a bench warmer or a Hall of Famer? Step up to the line. Your drive starts now on pigskindispatch.com, the Trivia Drive. Don't let your football history knowledge go to waste. Try the Pigskin Trivia Drive on pigskindispatch.com. And now, let's get back into our program.
We do need to talk about quarterbacks first, though, because it has not been pretty. We mentioned Deshaun Watson, who was having a very good career, and it has, come flying off the tracks. And then the other quarterbacks that were taken 12, none of them amounted to really, unfortunately, anything. We've got Christian Ponder, 2011 Vikings, Cade McNown, 99, the Bears, and then Chuck Long in 86 for the Lions. I'm going to ask you, let's see, of those 3 quarterbacks, Ponder, McNown, if I can say it, Cade McNown, and Chuck Long, who had the most wins as a starter?
Well, God, I know staying around the longest was probably McNown, but I don't know how many he started. I'm going to go with him because I think he had the longest career.
Nope, it was Christian Ponder. He had 14 career wins because he had one season. I don't remember. In 2012, he went 10-6. I don't
14.
Really
I wasn't expecting 14. I was expecting 4.
And then for the rest of his career, he had 4 wins. McNown had 3 wins, and Chuck Long had 4 wins. So between the 3 of them, they barely got to 20. So these were definitely 3 quarterback busts, and sort of one random year where Ponder was okay, and then just gone. So that was rough. It's been rough on quarterbacks for sure.
Yeah, maybe Mr. Nix will change your opinion.
Maybe, yeah. It does make you wonder a little bit if, once you get to 12, I wonder if teams are more apt to reach there. Like the teams at the top of the draft didn't take a quarterback because they weren't sold on them, and then you get a team that's kind of desperate at 12 and maybe reaches. I don't know, but it hasn't worked out very well.
Well, I will tell you that it's outside of your 1980 and beyond window, but we do have a quarterback that was drafted that's in the Hall of Fame that we'll be talking about here in a little bit.
Okay, I'll be interested to hear that. Okay. There is a pretty long list of honorable mentions, and we've gotten to the point now, Darin, where I'm not going to name all of the players that were good, because it would just be here for a long time.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to find the ones that really stick out that for an honorable mention for me. Alvin Harper in 1991, he did not, for the Cowboys, he did not have very good stats for his career, if you would go look him up. But he made some big splash plays. He had the very big, long touchdown reception in the 92 NFC Championship game in San Francisco that put Dallas in their first Super Bowl of that era. So he was a big player for the Cowboys in terms of making big plays.
And that's kind of shocking because, that's the Michael Irvin era. You'd think, all the coverage would roll to Irvin, and Harper would be a great target for Aikman to throw to.
Yeah, Harper was good for 2 catches a game for 75 yards, something like that. That was kind of his role. Keith Brooking was a very good linebacker for quite a while, drafted by the Falcons in 98. And then a guy that I really a soft spot for me would be Ken Harvey, was drafted in 1988 by the Cardinals. And he is one of those guys that just suffered from being on miserable teams. He was on a really bad Cardinals team. He was a free agent, signed with the Redskins during their very rough era of the like 94 to 97. He was very good on the edge, a very good outside linebacker, really nice career. Never played in one playoff game because his teams just never got there. And then let's just see if we've had Jim Harbaugh on this list in the past. Who's our one current head coach that was taken 12th overall? Do you know?
Not right offhand. Without
okay, I'll give you one hint. I'm not sure he'll be a head coach for too much longer, but he is right now.
I'm not sure. I'm not even looking on the list. I'm
94, Aaron Glenn.
Oh God, yeah, I didn't even look at him. Yeah, you're right.
He did have a pretty nice career. He did have a pretty nice
career.
He
did. He was
corner. Yeah. And then my very last guy I'm going to talk about was a dead tie with my number 5. Like dead tie. They played the same position. Was an absolute dead tie. But I'm from an older generation. We don't have ties, Darin. There's no trophies. So I had to cut somebody.
A tie to you is kissing your sisters.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I cut Haloti Ngata from the Ravens. And he's not in my top 5.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I was shocked at Aaron Glenn, but Haloti Ngata not making a top 5. All right.
Yep. So, but who beat him out? Number 5, also played the same position as Ngata, is Fletcher Cox, drafted in 2012 by the Eagles. He's on the 2010s All-Decade team. He had all 12 years with Philly. He made 4 All-Pro teams and 1 first-team All-Pro. Again, we talk about that all the time. In the middle part, he was a very good player on the team that won the Eagles' first Super Bowl. So he's a classic Eagle. And like I said, if you line him up next to Ngata, they're like almost identical. But what put me over the edge was Cox had he had 40 more sacks than Ngata. Now, I realize that Haloti probably played a little bit more nose, and Fletcher was a little bit more traditional defensive tackle. But I had to break the tie somehow. And I went with the guy that got a little bit more pressure on the quarterback.
I think they're both very good players, but I agree with you. I think Fletcher Cox is a little bit better player. He's a little bit more of a 2-gap. Haloti Ngata is a run stuffer and a block eater. It opened up for his backers to make some tackles. But yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised you didn't have Cox higher, but I'm interested to see.
Yeah, it was like I said, it's a pretty good list. So we'll see. But number 4, I've got a guy that was only 5'9" and 180 pounds, and that would be Warwick Dunn, drafted in 1997, running back by the Bucks. He was the offensive rookie of the year. I don't know if this is. It kind of surprised me when I looked at it. He only played 5 years in Tampa and then 7 with the Falcons. I definitely remember him.
Yeah, I don't remember him with the Falcons.
Yeah, 7 years there. And what was interesting to me was he sort of flip-flopped his workload, meaning when he was with the Bucks, he was catching more passes and not rushing as much. And then he flip-flopped it with the Falcons. But out of 11 of the 12 years he played, Darin, he had 1,000 or more yards from scrimmage. And the 1 year he didn't he had 958. And he did have 5 years of rushing for over 1,000 yards too, as a really tiny guy. And then in age 30 was actually his most productive season in 1995. And then in the playoff game, he had 100. He didn't play in a lot, but he had 142 yards and 2 touchdowns in a playoff win over the Rams in 2004. And I think Warwick Dunn was just a weapon. And just somebody that kind of like a difference maker in a game. And that's kind of what really sets him apart for me, is he can make those 1 or 2 extra plays, get those extra first downs out of the backfield, lining up, somebody that the defense had to account for all the time. And I think a lot of people know this about him, that just kind of elevates him a little bit more. He was the Walter Payton Man of the Year once, lots of off the field accolades. His mother was a police officer, and she was killed 2 days after his 18th birthday when she was doing some security off duty, and he sort of became the mother and father of his brothers and sisters at 18. And so he's just a really good story. He was like a great dude and just a hell of a player.
National champion at
Yes.
Florida State, and yeah, some great teams. Yeah, he was almost like Derek Sproles before Derek Sproles. You know,
he's in that vein. Yes,
perimeter. Yeah. All right, he's solid. Yeah.
Right.
All right. So who do you have at 3?
3 would be somebody that I really there's a couple hills I want to die on, and I'm going to die on this hill forever, and that is the Jim Lachey hill. Offensive tackle taken in 1985, taken by the Chargers. I'm going to say some things about Lachey here in a minute. Very, very weird trade, a series of trades. He played 3 years with the Chargers, was very good, got traded to the Raiders for a pretty hefty package. Then after he played 1 game with the Raiders traded him to the Redskins for Jay Schrader, the quarterback. And I'm just going to tell you this, Darin. From 1989 through 1992, Jim Lachey was the best offensive lineman I've ever seen. Ever. That he was dominant. Incredible. I think he was equal probably to Anthony Munoz, which is some people consider the best offensive tackle in the history of football, for good reason. In the annals of the league, you cannot put Jim Lachey with Anthony Munoz because he did not do it for nearly as long. But when he was at his peak, I've personally never watched anybody that was any better. Nobody touched. And he was going against Reggie White and Lawrence Taylor twice a year. Nobody ever sniffed the quarterbacks from the left side for like 4 years in Washington. He had a really bad knee injury. I think it was knee in 92. That kind of ended it. It was done. He was done. Since then, he has been on every broadcast for Ohio State University in the radio booth since like 97. So he's still in football back at his alma mater, but he was one amazing player.
Yeah, great story. Yeah, great player.
Yes,
can't disagree with that. When you're playing 25% of your games against Reggie White and Lawrence Taylor, probably 2 of the best pass rushers ever. That's pretty good thing
for
to be
sure.
So, yeah,
yes, for sure.
All right.
Sure.
So who do you have at number 2?
Well, I know you're gonna remember this one. Taken in 2007, we're gonna go beast mode. Marshawn Lynch, taken in 2007 by the Bills. Another weird trade. He had a really good start with the Bills. He had 2 really strong seasons. Then he had 2 years, like 2009 and 2010, where he was not very good or productive. There were some off-the-field stuff going on, and I think the Bills were a little bit unhappy with him. So they traded him to Seattle for a very modest return. And then a total rebirth with the Seahawks in 2011. 4 straight 1,200-yard seasons, 4 straight Pro Bowls, 2 All-Pro teams. Led the league in rushing touchdowns in both 2013 and 2014. I like this about him a lot, Darin. He played in 13 career playoff games, and he scored 12 touchdowns. So he was good for almost a touchdown per game. We all remember the 1 touchdown he didn't get, of course, would have been when the Seahawks,
one carry he didn't get.
Right. When the Seahawks didn't call his name when they should have on the goal line, which probably cost them a Super Bowl. He retired, and then he came back, and he was the comeback player of the year for the Raiders in 2017. He has an interesting Hall of Fame case to me. It really depends on what you value and how you look at things. If you just look at the all-time rushing leaders and all those numbers, he's probably going to come up short because he doesn't pop on the page. But if you want to talk about like, oh my gosh, on a Super Bowl winning level team, we can't stop that guy. That was Marshawn Lynch. He was a guy that took games over. Let me put it this way. I'll rank a lot of running backs higher than him, but if we do the who would you want for 1 game rankings, he's going to be way higher for me.
You mean like who would you want from the 1-yard line and at the end of a Super Bowl? Yeah.
Oh boy. Yeah, that was yikes. I mean, yes. Give the beast the ball from the 1-yard line.
Yeah, I don't care if all 11 are expecting it on defense. Still give them the ball.
I would give the ball. I would give the ball to the B. And he was an interesting guy. He was kind of weird, and people had a hard time kind of reading him. Like, is he in on the joke? Is he trolling people? Like, it's like he was a little bit of a loose cannon, maybe hard to read, but also kind of makes things fun.
Yeah, and he does some fun things like that now since he's been retired. He's been on a lot of shows having some pranks, and
I think he's in movies. I think
he's having a good time. He's living a good life.
And really fun guy to watch.
Yeah, most definitely. The old beast mode.
Yep.
All right, so who do you have in your number one spot?
I think number one's pretty easy, especially going back to 1980 at least. It's pretty easy. And that is one guy that does have the gold jacket. And that is going to be Warren Sapp, defensive tackle taken in 95 by the Bucks. In 13 years, he didn't miss very many games. It's interesting, on draft night, I don't know if you remember this, right before the draft, like the night before the draft, there were these rumors that he tested positive for marijuana and cocaine. And not only did he deny it, but the league came out and said, this is like a fabricated story. Somebody's out to get him. We have no evidence of this. But it hurt him apparently in the draft. He probably would have gone higher than 12 because he was a big time college player. So I think that hurt him a little bit. He dropped a little bit.
It might have been the Buccaneers that were saying that. So
perhaps. Yeah, sly as a fox there. So he made 7 straight Pro Bowls between 97 and 03. But then this is incredible: 4 straight first team All Pros during that same stretch. So basically, hey, best defensive tackle in the league, top 1 or 2, whatever. Defensive player of the year in 99 when they had an absolutely dominant defense. Very prominent figure just on the Bucks in general, I'd say. 96.5 career sacks. He was okay for the Raiders too, not bad. One thing that really sticks out to me for Warren Sapp that's a little different than we talked about like Aaron Donald is Warren Sapp was not like a Greek god. He kind of had that roly-poly body. He did have some weight issues throughout his career where I know the teams wanted him to drop some. He was kind of like round, and you probably wouldn't think that this guy is so insanely athletic and can get to the quarterback the way he did. So he kind of looked a little different and, kind of squatty out there. And he did this in his post-career. He's had all kinds of I don't know if they're major or minor, all kinds of legal issues and stuff. But and also thought of this, Darin, because another guy we talked about. I don't know why I never put this together. So the Bucks took Sapp in 95 in the first round. They had a second first round pick that year, a guy we talked about, who was also number 1 on our list for that pick. Number 2, I'm sorry, on the number 20. That's Derek Brooks. They took 2 Hall of Famers, 2 easy first ballot Hall of Famers in the middle of the field on defense in the same round of the same draft. That is incredible. And then if you think they already had John Lynch on the team, okay? Mm-hmm. So we always talk about how important it is to in the middle of the field. Interior D-line, middle linebacker, and safety. They went Hall of Fame, Hall of Fame, Hall of Fame.
Draw a straight line right up the middle, right?
And they hired Dungy in 96. So all of those guys arrived at the same time. So my message for the Jets and the Browns and the Raiders this year is just do that. Just draft future Hall of Famers and you'll be fine.
Well, we just talked about their coach just a second ago, so maybe he wants to save his job. He'll do that. So
yes, sir.
Yeah. All right. Well, so that Sapp is one of our Hall of Famers we talked about earlier. There are 2 other ones. The first one came in 1961, and one of the greatest defensive backs of all time, Herb Adderley of the Green Bay Packers, who still has many of the Packers records for defending passes and interceptions and everything, Hall of Famer. And this is a little known because he didn't play in the NFL at first. 1965, the St. Louis Cardinals took Joe Namath. So Joe Willie Namath is our quarterback that's in the Hall of Fame, but never played for the team that drafted him in the NFL draft. So that's when the AFL still had their own draft, and
that's a good pull. We could do an entire pod someday on Namath and sort of the polarizing nature of his career in a lot of ways, because you get on paper it's not pretty actually. Way more interceptions than touchdowns in his career, but that's probably a debate or a topic for another time.
And most importantly, he's a Western Pennsylvania. So,
oh boy, here we go. Yeah, here we go.
even though he played at Bama, he's from Western Pennsylvania.
Western PA kid.
We have a lot of that coming up in the next few days. The only other one I really want to talk about that's old school, 1939, not in the Hall of Fame, but Marshall Goldberg, who is another Western Pennsylvania Pitt Panther. Marshall Goldberg had his number retired by the Cardinals organization. And if you remember when J.J. Watt got traded, or I don't know if he maybe free agent with the Cardinals, to get his number 99, they had to go ask Marshall Goldberg's family if they could get that. And Goldberg has been a lot lately on the senior list, so he might get in Canton here eventually. He's a popular name that pops up on the senior circuit.
Mr. Goldberg, okay.
Yeah. So great player he was too. All right, we have our 3 Hall of Famers. Our most popular position picked at number 12 has been defensive tackle, and we've seen some good ones. We just talked about a whole bunch of them between Fletcher Cox and Warren Sapp, and some of the other ones we talked about. And our draft stat of the day is about this 12th spot. So it's kind of an interesting one. The 12th overall pick in the NFL draft has been remarkably high hit of rate, producing perennial Pro Bowlers and cornerstone defensive talents like we've seen. Since 1985, this spot has yielded 5 first-team All-Pros and multiple NFL 2010s All-Decade team, if you so noted, making it the sweet spot for defensive linemen and versatile defenders. So almost everybody we talked about was a defensive player in your top 5, except for what Warren Dunn and Beast Mode. But all your honorable mentions, most of them were defensive. So that holds pretty true. So very interesting stat there. So I think that sort of wraps up our Dirty Dozen, the top number 12 pick here of in your top 5 that you've had. And we'll be coming back tomorrow to talk about the 11th selection. So I thank you for joining us, Ed.
Can't wait. See you tomorrow.
That's all the football history we have today, folks. Join us back tomorrow for more of your football history. We invite you to check out our website, pigskindispatch.com, not only to see the daily football history, but to experience positive football with our many articles on the good people of the game, as well as our own football comic strip, Cleat Marks Comics. Pigskindispatch.com is also on social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget the Pigskin Dispatch YouTube channel to get all of your positive football news and history. Special thanks to the talents of Mike and Gene Monroe, as well as Jason Neff for letting us use their music during our podcast.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.